Hi there, I'm your host Clive Sirkin, and welcome to the Unstuck podcast, where we're on a journey to help you get control of your work environment, get yourself unstuck, and perform to your full potential. Okay, so today I'm sitting here talking to my first Spaniard on Unstuck. I want to welcome Cristina from recording from Barcelona in Spain. Cristina is the Chief Growth Officer and Sustainability Officer for the Kraft Heinz company. Welcome, Cristina.
Thank you so much. Wonderful to be here. I'm in Barcelona, but in reality, I'm in London.
So you raised the geography. Let's talk geography. So you were born and raised in Spain. Somehow you had a career in advertising and you landed up in Sydney, Australia. Then back to Spain, where you worked with a number of agencies, and then you went client side and you had a number of jobs, if I recall correctly, Pepsi, Danone, and now Kraft Heinz. So
Yes.
talk about the geography. Well, let's talk about the history of your career. Like, how do you plan a career like that, where you're bouncing around geographically, and then you transition out of agency into client side? So I'm curious, what was going on? Was this a master plan?
Uh, no, you couldn't design life. So no, what happened is I'm actually half German, half Catalan, born in Barcelona. But my parents travel a lot when we were kids. Like they showed us the world a lot. So I was very young, and then when I went to Australia, to Sydney, and I fell in love with three things. The first one, my husband. So I met him when I was just 20. The agency side, like I got a wonderful job with on Ogilvy and Mather. It was Singletons at the time. It became one when I was there. And then I fell in love with Australia, which is a fantastic place to be. Sydney is wonderful. So I spent there 5.5 years. So it was a combination of everything, of finding a beautiful career, a nice place, and a wonderful person to share my life with. And then one day,
Not a bad deal.
not a bad deal, no? You couldn't plan that.
Yeah.
So one day I decided to come back to Barcelona mainly because I wanted to have babies and I wanted to have them close to my mother and my father. I wanted them to have grandparents and I just wanted to go back to Barcelona. So then is when I moved over. Immediately I got a job with Seat Volkswagen, and it was a beautiful job in the agency where I was looking after all the launches of Seat in the world. Very interesting moment in the automotive industry because cars were changing from a sporty perspective, the positioning. So it was a wonderful school to be in, to learn. I was a strategic planner and a client service director. But the beauty of launching in different countries and learning from the automotive industry was absolutely great. Then I was called by another agency, and when I was in Australia, I worked with PepsiCo restaurants, and I loved my time with PepsiCo restaurants. And I was called by PepsiCo to come and join the client side with an agency with BBDO. And I don't know, it was just the right moment to change. I had been with Volkswagen 5 years, and I actually look forward going back to PepsiCo and to that side of things, which is it felt to me like a much more fun job at the moment. So I changed, and I wanted to get into PepsiCo. I like that company a lot, so I started working in the client side. Um, sorry, in the agency side, but being a strategic planner and a client service director, I was more in the client than I was in the agency. I became a partner. I used to travel a lot with all the VPs and everywhere around. I was very involved with the strategy and the setting up. So it was a very simple jump to go to the client side, given the position I had in the
Yep.
agency. So I became first. I started in the insights department. So from planet to insight, it's kind of quite simple. I think the hardest thing to me, if I'm honest with you, was that when PepsiCo brought me in, they gave me a job in Spain, looking after what is called Iberia, which is Spain and Portugal. And that was the most difficult thing because I was so used to looking after big geographies. Even when I was in PepsiCo restaurants in the agency site in Sydney, I was looking after a big geography because we had New Zealand, we had a little ascendancy in some Asian parts, so
Yep.
it was a bit of a broad role. And then suddenly I had a very vertical agenda in a country, and that was the very first time. So if I'm honest
And
with
just so I'm
you,
clear, because I just want to. So when you went agency to client side, you went from being strategic planner slash client service in or account management into an insights role at PepsiCo.
that's right. That was
Got
my
it.
first role, and very fast they gave me more responsibilities, and in very little time I became the marketing director of Spain and Portugal, which it was a wonderful position because it allowed me to work transversally in many areas in innovation, in communications, in insights, and in channels because the PepsiCo has a lot of gravitas into what happens with the channels, and I was very close to, for example, DTS, which was the on the street channel and things like that. So it was a big position within PepsiCo Iberia. And then one day they called me and they said to me, "Do you want to look after Lays globally?" And it was like a dream, you know, like they will
A
offer me,
little brand.
yes, a little brand, like only 12 billion. You wanna come move to New York and look after this? And I couldn't believe that was put in front of me, and I went for the job. And I actually said to my husband, "Look, at the very least, we'll get a weekend in New York." So I went for the interview, and they picked me, and I will be forever thankful that they picked me because then the way my career accelerated, and especially from a learning perspective, no, we're talking about it was when PepsiCo did the internal studio in the Soho, which was wonderful. It was the very first time that we were looking at a brand like Lay's from a global perspective. We created things like the first toolkits in terms of understanding whether we can have an image. So it was a gigantic moment in terms of setting up some really big bases for a brand like Lay's, no? And even now, sometimes I'm traveling around the world, I still see things that I did back then. So they were maybe they weren't that bad. So no, it was fantastic. And also we signed a deal with the Champions League. We signed deals with Messi. We signed deals with Enrique Iglesias. So everything was it was a lot of fun, and I loved my time with PepsiCo. But I after more than, I think it was something like 4.5 years in or 5 years in New York, I was feeling homesick, and I wanted to go back to Barcelona. Also, my parents, you know, they kind of became old without me knowing. So I was seeing them like I sort of felt like I was too far away from them, and they were reaching that moment where I needed to be close to them. You know, I've done a lot of traveling. I lived in many places, but I felt like I wanted to be closer to them. And my kids, by at that point, I had two boys, and I wanted them to also be closer to European culture. I loved living in America, but I felt that they were more European. No, they were going to be happier in the schooling system here. They're very international. My oldest son is very artistic, so I thought, you know, let's go back to Europe. I think as a family we need to do that. And it was a sad moment because I did not wanted to say goodbye to PepsiCo, but it became this moment where the planets kind of align themselves. No? I was thinking about moving away from New York. There were many positions with PepsiCo in Europe of my level, and let alone Barcelona. And then Danone came along and said to me, "Look, we have this really amazing position, which it was VP for Spain and Portugal, and it was a GM type of position. So it was for me. It was also very interesting to go back to understanding, to getting closer to the let's say the market, no,
Yep.
the more vertical agendas. And it was in Barcelona, and Danone is a brand that was born in Spain, and is one of those heritage brands in my country. So I sort of felt like I wanted to do it. No, it became almost like a more responsibility. Danone had been having negative numbers for 11 years, and I thought, well, I love to turn
Great,
around this business. I love
great
to work
channel.
with the company. So I did it. I came over, and it was 4 great years. I can't remember, 4 or 5. I can't remember now. And it was fun. It was good. We did a lot of things. We did an amazing pipeline. We did a lot of things with the brand. We made internal agencies. So the whole thing was very, very fast. I For a little bit of time I also had to look after Activia Global. We turned it around again. Beautiful new visual system, innovation pipeline. We reset the communication and the positioning which is still being valid to date, and it was all a lot of fun. But I felt that when I was looking at the next stage of my life, I did not see myself moving to Paris, and I did not see myself in the company. And then when Kraft Heinz came along and they offered me the growth officer position, and also the opportunity to work with an environment that for me it was more American, more direct. It was sort of more the way I am, even if I'm Spanish. I'm very Anglo-Saxon. So I thought, look, let's continue the discussion. And then by the time Danone and I decided to separate, COVID hit. So I never got to move to London. So this is why I'm
Yes.
in Barcelona. But hopefully, if everything goes well, we'll move this summer.
So there's so many things I want to get into, but since we're on it now, so here
Sure.
you are taking this, truly large, a substantial role in a new company with a very different culture to the previous company, and it's the middle of COVID, right? So it's early 2020, yeah. So talk about that kind of a transition because it can be challenging in the best of times, but a dramatic change like this with no relationships established, no history in the business, obviously this is not your first rodeo, but this must have been interesting to say the least. So I'll be curious how the experience was.
Yeah, it was a hard experience because, of course, first of all, I couldn't move, no, because suddenly COVID hit, and then I was locked up in a house. So emotionally, I think for all of us, it was hard. And then the bit that it was harder for me is not to see my team, not to see the people, and I had to do heavy things like reorganize things and reset the agenda, do a strat plan, redo a pipeline, redo the way we were doing a lot of things. So the hardest thing was the emotional part. To try to do everything with a screen, it takes a lot of effort. And for a while, I was exhausted, no, at the end of the day, because when you are trying to project yourself into a screen, it's much harder than when you're in person, like in a meeting. You can relax a bit, you can walk around, you can fix some things with a little bit of humor, you can have a beer with someone if something gets stuck. All of that suddenly was gone,
Gone.
and they didn't know me and I didn't know them. So probably at the beginning, it was very, very hard to be myself, and I only got to meet my team 1.5 years into the post,
Wow.
when we all decided that we had to see each other. My direct reports flew to Barcelona because half of my team is in Holland, half of my team is my R&D team is in the Netherlands, and my growth team is in London, in the Shard. And at that point, there was no reciprocity. Like, UK wouldn't accept Dutch people, and vice versa. We thought a quarantine.
So yeah,
Incredible. That
Barcelona,
was
here we come.
that was last summer. So we
Yeah.
said, well, this is doing in Barcelona. So they came over, and for me, that was such a beautiful present to be able to meet them as human, to be able to present myself as a human. And we had a lot of fun and a lot of working sessions where we decided a lot of things in terms of, like, heavy things in terms of structure, in terms of the way we wanted to approach the next stage of growth, the way we wanted to look at strategy. We couldn't have achieved everything that we achieved in 4 days through Teams. I mean, absolutely impossible. And that was a little present along the way. And then for 2 months, they allowed us to travel again.
Yeah.
So I was able to go to the Shard,
Back
to see
again.
the office. I went to see my team in Nijmegen, where we have our R&D team. I was able to meet some of my peers. I was able to go to Chicago and meet Miguel Patricio, which is the president, who I only seen in screens. So for 2 months they opened that up, and to me it was specifically hard when I think it was the first week of December when they put us back in the box.
Yep.
Because the human side matters, and it matters a lot. And I
It's
still miss
interesting.
that.
You say the humans. I'm listening to you talk, and there's three things that come out to me. One is you just said the human thing. A lot of what you talk about is rooted in humanity. But then there were two other things that are connected. You keep saying fun. You're talking about a career, but you keep saying fun. And the other is your family. And I know from selfishly, my career was um, always secondary to my family. And clearly, you've placed your family in your two kids as primacy, and it hasn't affected your career. So, talk about that this triangle of humanity and fun and family, and how you harness that to create a meaningful career. There's challenges in anything you do, but I'm very struck by those thoughts that I keep hearing in your
Yeah,
narrative.
it's nice. You're very intuitive, man, because this is a bit of my compass. I really believe that teams have to have fun and you have to have fun at work. I deeply, deeply believe that because we spend too many hours doing this and we need to enjoy it. We need to make sure that the collaboration, the team playing, the wanting to be with each other is at the forefront. Without that, then it's hard, it's harder to feel like you have buddies, that you can make mistakes, that you can celebrate others. I think everything is part of growth, no? And I put fun with my teams very much in the center. The family thing, I just cannot imagine a successful life if my loved ones are not happy. I had moments in my life where, of course, things were tough. I had, like any of us, we had sicknesses in the family and tough moments. I think it's part of life.
Yep.
And when those ones come, to me, they act a little bit like a crystallizer, no? Like a lot of the moves that I was explaining before, I did them when I felt that either the family or myself, we weren't happy, because I think that's our number one responsibility in this world. My responsibility is not to become rich or not to become successful. Is to be a whole human being and to be happy. And as parents, if we give one thing to our kids, it's whatever we can give them in terms of happiness, a good
Yep.
environment, a place where we feel that they can develop better, time with them. I make a point on, except when I'm traveling, which I usually, when we're not put into the COVID box, I do travel a lot. When I don't travel, I make sure to do sports every day. I
Yep.
either run, yoga, or do anything every single day. I do sports, and every single day I want to have dinner with my family. So for me, there's a moment where I stop and I want to see them.
Uh, it's funny. It's an European thing, particularly a Spaniard thing. I mean, a big part, an enormous influence in my career was he's passed sadly, but Miguel Angel Forones, the legendary Miguel Angel, and he had such an influence on my career. And I spent time with him, and the 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 notion of family, multi-generational family, um, was so fundamental to him, and I got to experience that in as a European concept, and a certainly a very Spanish. At least that was my experience. Um, but
Yes.
and I'll tell you the other thing, because Miguel and I worked together in Leo Burnett. Leo himself had this saying, which is, no one gets into business for fun, but it doesn't mean you shouldn't have fun in business.
Yes.
And when you're passionate and you're enjoying yourself, then, the fame, the money, the career, the titles, all that stuff is potentially an outcome, not the objective. It's a
No,
consequential
it's not the
outcome.
objective.
No. So I want to come back to the transition, and then I want to talk a little bit about sustainability. But you and I have both transitioned from agency side to client side. And that's not you know, there's some big issues making that change. For me, most certainly it was the financials, right? As an agency person, the P&L management is at best two-dimensional. When you get into the client side environment, it becomes much, much, much more complex. How much of a challenge was it for you, and where were the challenges? Because there's a lot of people who listen to this podcast who are agency side who are thinking about going client side. And I
Mm.
get that question asked of me a lot.
Yes, I think the final size is a big one. If you want to do the transition, you need to become studious. Like you need to bring up yourself, understanding the PNL, and PepsiCo put time and effort onto me understanding a PNL, and I'll be thankful forever. But also, I put myself through that. Like I made sure that it was something that I was really, really, I was proficient on it. I was able to do business cases, understanding PNLs, understanding what it means to impact from a numeric perspective any issue. The other thing that helped me as well is I like numbers. Like I I don't mind putting time into the bones of the issue, and perhaps it's not something very common in people in the agency. Like sometimes I think it's the fact that I'm half Spanish, half German. No, I have this kind of creative side, the fun side, the part that is very energetic, and I have my German side, no, which I have to thank my mother for that, where I am very studious. I can put things in a row. I will look at the numbers. I will deep dive. So the fact that I can do both, I think it has helped me a lot through my career. But if you don't have it, you need to acquire it. No?
Yeah, sweat equity. But you've also, you've spent a lot of time with continuing education, formal
Yes,
education.
yes, yes,
Talk about that. I mean, that's obviously a purposeful decision, and it's a substantial
yes.
investment of time. Why?
Um, I need to say that I'm so thankful that the companies that I was with, they helped me going through things. Like, for example, I went through Harvard, or when I went to London Business School. I went to really, really good places, and it was something that my employees allow me to apply for those positions, and then they had me paying for it. So I have to disclose that, no, that I wasn't alone in the journey of learning. And I think that's a responsibility from the companies. Like if you really believe in someone and you need to help them educating. And then the other responsibility is on oneself. No, I like the matrix of one third, one third, one third. One third is the job. No, you learn on the job. You need to apply yourself and make the most of the job and learn on the job. The other third, you apply outside the job, like listening to your to podcasts could be one thing. Reading, I read a lot. Making sure that you educate yourself in a 360 way, to me, that's the other third. And you need to be very active at keeping always at the forefront of everything that happens, especially in our careers. You know, in a career like I'm a growth officer, so innovation, you're at the front, you're at the back. Marketing, you're in the front, you're in the back. Insights, you're in the front, you're in the back. Distribution, e-com, digital innovation, like everything that you look at in the
Yep.
business side, there's only two speeds, front or back, and you don't want to be in the back. So you better use your time to be at the front, and that is not on the job. It is on the job, but it's also you wanting to be active.
Yeah.
Then there's one third that it can help, which is the formal education. But to be honest with you, that's not the one that gave me the big differential. That one I'm thankful and I did it and I will do it again. But the big thing has been the curiosity of the one third and
Yep.
the appliance on the job.
The University of Life. But I love the you're either in the front or the back. It's a beautiful construct, simple, and stock. You're either in the front or the back, and the back sucks.
The back
Uh,
sucks.
but let's talk about that, because look at the companies now. Granted, we won't make a value judgment, but the Pepsi culture is very different to the Danone culture, which is very different to the Kraft Heinz culture. So let's just pick those three. But what they do have in common is massive, large, multinational, global, mature categories. Yeah. And having had some experience in that, change comes hard in those kinds of environments. Um, your role in no matter which of those roles, but particularly now, involves driving substantial change or necessary change to be in the front and not in the back. Um, and I'm curious how you do that effectively, because you know it's easy to come in and create chaos. That's not going to result in sustained change. So how do you manage the tension of the way it is, the way it's been, and the need for change to grow and to get to the front? Because I'm curious, because I sure as hell did not succeed enough.
Culture is such an intricate, exponential part of company success and people success. For companies, the culture that you build, it can make a big difference whether your people are going to be at the front or at the back, your projects at the front or the back, your market front or the back. So culture is gigantic. And for an individual, not everybody thrives in every culture. You need to know what matters to you. You need to know what kind of culture is the one that matches your value system. Before joining Kraft Heinz, I spent a lot of time wanting to understand what is the culture that the new management. We have a new president, Patricio. Rafa, my boss, was just setting up the international side. So I spent a bit of time understanding what kind of culture do we want to put together in this company. And what I saw in them is that they wanted to really change a company that has been chastised for being cost cutting and the whole dark ages of Kraft Heinz. The culture that we wanted to embed is a culture of growth. It's a culture of it's a culture of collaboration. It's a culture of having the consumer in the center. It's a culture that is also incredibly welcoming, which is something that is amazing in the company, that we really believe on diversity, on people's voices, on meritocracy. You can start very young and junior in Kraft Heinz and make it quite fast through the ranks. So overall, when I was listening to the type of culture and the type of systems that the company was setting behind to recreate this culture, I believed in it. I thought, let's go do it. And this is what we're doing. And if I fast forward, I think it's been 1 year and 8 months, I can tell you that this is what we're doing. We are changing the culture of the company. So for me, it's an absolute privilege to be part of this change.
You said systems. That's very interesting, because culture is not a slogan on a piece of paper or a speech. Yeah. And I heard you say we're putting systems behind the culture we want to create. Talk a little bit. I'm curious. What's that?
Systems is a must, and the way that we reward our people, the way that you can create a bonus system or a way to promote people or a way to set up the right formal and informal meetings, that will create formal systems that can impact the informal system, which is the culture. For example, if you will see me, if you we will have a conversation on your growth, and I will not give you the right feedback. If you will see a colleague that is getting, I don't know, better positions than you, and you don't understand why, there's something in the system that is not working. So this is the things that we are putting together. We spend a lot of time at understanding where the individual wants to go, what are the gaps of the person, how do we make them grow. I dedicate a lot of time to, like, from a very deep perspective, wanting to see my team grow, and this is part of the the systems that you need to make sure that you put together. If what you want is meritocracy as a culture, if what you want is a culture of growth, you want a culture of people taking responsibility. If you want a culture of, I don't know, respecting the king, you create a different type of system.
Or the Queen.
You, or the queen, yes. Then you create a different type of system. So I think they're very, very intertwined.
100%. Because the beginning, the core of this podcast, Unstuck, is about releasing the full potential of humans. And it came out of a conversation with my first guest, Pete Del Camaro, who I had a long career with. And he and I were talking once, and we talked about performance is a formula. It's a function of potential minus obstacles plus encouragement. And companies invest time in systems in performance management, but not enough in systems designed to unlock potential, systems to remove barriers, and systems to provide encouragement. And by encouragement, not necessarily, cheerleading, but tangible encouragement and enablement. And it sounds similar to the ethos that you're talking about.
100%. 100%.
Because it's astounding to me when you look at companies struggling. It's not generally, it's not that they have worse people. It's that they're not getting the full potential out of those people. Like, people leave a company and join another company and have tremendous success. It's the same person. So there has to be something fundamental to the culture of the company that allows it to happen.
Yes, and to me, if you don't have the right culture, the good people abandon you eventually.
Yep.
So it's not only about making them grow; it's also it's your responsibility to invest on them so they stay and they're
And that's
happy.
passion.
Which we go back to
Passion.
the fun.
Right.
It's hard for someone to be fully vested into somewhere unless you're having fun,
Hmm. No
unless
doubt
you are
about it.
enjoying what you're doing.
We're running out of time. This is what happens when you have a wonderful guest. I want to go over time because we didn't talk about the one thing that I know you're passionate about, that I think wasn't originally part of the job description that you have now, that you
Yes.
you lobbied to get, which is sustainability. And so
Yes.
why is it? I mean, there's some obvious, but why was it so important to you? Where does that come from? And what's your philosophy there? And this could be another 1 hour conversation. Maybe we'll do two
Yes. Where do I
episodes.
start? Where do I start? No, sustainability for me is a must. ESG is a must as humans, and it comes from many different areas. The first one is I don't know. I just really really care, like profoundly care about people and the environment. So that's in me probably from a very long time. And it's something that when I went to Danone, Danone is really good at sustainability, and I understood a lot of how companies can make an impact in that area. I also got very close to B Corp because we certified Danone with B Corp, and currently I'm still working with B Corp. I am part of the Impact Circle, which is like a board locally. Um, so for me, it's a must that it's a responsibility that I take as a whole human, no?
Yep.
With everything that I do day in and day out. And I think it's almost like a Maslow pyramid. I now want to choose the way I do things. And when I went when I was discussing coming to Kraft Heinz, with Rafa Oliveira, which is my boss. I said to him, "Look, this is important for me. Can we put the two positions together?" And he says yes. And the amazing thing is that he's been an amazing ally. Like he's gone from not really understanding what I meant when I was talking about sustainability to have me pushing a lot of programs to ensuring that we're doing the right thing day in, day out. And for that, I'm grateful. And I also think that growth without sustainability, it doesn't make sense. You know, you need to grow and you need to grow the right way. I think,
That's
go ahead.
I'm sorry. She's laughing because my fingers wagging on the screen. We're gonna have to do another. I'm gonna beg you to come back for another episode because it's so fundamental. Like I believe, and I don't know if you agree, but it sounds like you're heading there. Is sustainability, if it's not baked into the commercial success of the company, is not going to be sustainability. It's going to be a donation that will not sustain itself, pun intended. In my mind, if you make sustainability commercial, there's an incentive to reinvest in it because there's money coming out of it. And I think we should be unabashedly commercial about sustainability because then it becomes embedded and fundamental to and central to the growth and success of the company versus just wanting to do something nice, which is not a bad thing. But just doing something nice or something good is a donation and it doesn't feed itself. And I would love for you, seriously, to come back maybe with, I have someone else in mind, the three of us talk about how to embed it into the commercial success of a company, unless you disagree. But even if you do, that's great.
I completely agree, and I'll be glad to chat with you again.
We'll
So
do another one.
we'll find another moment.
Okay, so look forward to the next episode with my dear friend Cristina. So my Spanish, Australian, American, German friend, Cristina, as they say, un grande abrazo. Thank you so much.
Un abrazo también.
Take care.
Thank you so much.
This podcast was brought to you by Screen Dragon. We break down barriers, make work flow, and unlock talent. Visit screendragon.com to see our software in action.